So Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming down.
Cool, thanks for having me.
My job today, my personal interest really, is to get inside your brain and understand how it works, and really kind of understand how your process works as well. I know there might not be a set way of doing things, and I know that you're probably going to talk about lots of different things, but I want to try and unpack your mind a little bit and then understand it a bit more in detail. So,
okay.
Do you want to kick us off with a little bit about yourself and how you got into this field as well?
Yep. So I would love to understand my own mind as well. So hopefully I can gain some self-realization or
self-awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness in this. So what I do, well, I'm who I am. I'm Elizabeth. I'm a American, born in the USA, but I live here in Florida.
Nice.
So I'm a Southern girl, but I don't have a Southern accent. And so I live here in the UK for 10 years. So I feel very British inside my head. I feel like a total hybrid of both things. I am, in title, I'm an executive producer. But in function, I'm just a creative. I am I draw on whatever is needed for the job. So sometimes I'm acting as a creative director. Sometimes I'm an account manager. I will go out and do pitches. I will take the team through ideation. I will manage the production of whatever it is we decide that we're making. And I'll take that through from, concept to delivery. So I can tick all those boxes. Technically, I'm an executive producer.
Because I see on your Instagram, I check on Instagram, and it's the Global Fire Creative page, isn't it? And so I go there and I see all these amazing shoots you're doing with different clients that you have, and I know that you show me a lot of the stuff that you're doing behind the scenes and the creative ideas that you have, and that's kind of I'd love to get to know that process a little bit further.
Okay.
But yeah, I love your Instagram. It's great. It's great to keep on top of see what you're up to all the time, and I love the kind of behind the scenes and showing the team what you're up to as well as. Or showing us what the team are up to and things.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into this field? How did you get to where you are? I'm sure there's not just a simple, I just want to apply and become that person. Is there a way of does everyone go through a similar process, or is it completely different for everybody?
The most of the people, I am curious. I am a naturally curious person about the world and all facets of it. So when I meet people in my industry, I'm constantly asking them, I'm just at the tail end of a cold, so I'll be coughing through this whole thing.
That's fine, yeah. We'll work that for the editors, for sure.
So I'm always asking people, so how did you get in this role? How did you end up, the biggest art directors I've worked with, the biggest producers, and most of them just kind of fell into it, which is a really unhelpful answer for people who are working their butts off to try and get where I am today, whatever that means.
They just fell into it.
I just fell into it.
Inspirational story there.
So there's this thing called survivorship bias, which is the idea that in order to get where we want to be, we're looking at the people who succeeded at getting there rather than looking at kind of the graveyard of dreams that never actually happened. So for instance, a 12-year-old kid goes, Justin Bieber got discovered on YouTube, so I'm gonna be on YouTube. I've heard kids be like, oh, I don't need school. I'm just gonna be a YouTube star. What they don't see is the millions and millions of people who never ever make it. So we look at people who are doing what we want to do, who are doing what our dreams are, and we go, I want to be them, and I'm gonna be able to become that way. And I guess we look at the steps that we think we need to take or the steps that they took to get there. But what we don't see is the millions and millions of non-Justin Biebers that are out there who never turned into Justin Bieber. So I never looked at people in advertising and went, I want to be in advertising. I just looked around one day and went, oh, I'm in advertising. And then I went to, I had some time on my hands. I'm a very busy person. I never ever stop. So I had launched one of my businesses, and it was 5 years old, and 5 years is that lovely mark where things are, pretty much taking care of themselves, and all the really, really hard work of building up to that point was done. So now my business was just ticking over.
What sort of business was it?
That was a photography business. It's still going. And so I had a few hours on my hand every week, and I thought, what can I do? So I decided I was going to go get a master's degree in advertising. I was interested in advertising. I got my job at Global Fire pretty much at the same time as I got accepted to ad school. So we decided that I was going to keep trying to manage both and see what would happen.
Where did you decide to say, okay, I'm going to go, so your business had got to a position where it's running itself and you had that free time. What was the decision, what was that kind of moment in time that you thought, okay, I'm going to go and do this now? Was it where you've been doing loads of research for ages, or was it just like an off-the-cuff moment and just... Okay.
Like all of my decisions, it was just like, this feels good, I'm going to do this.
So you're like that, you're spontaneous and you just go and do it?
Yes.
Love it. Okay, cool.
And lots of stuff doesn't work out, but I try and be flexible and agile and go with the flow and see what happens. I try out lots of stuff, make lots of mistakes, mess lots of things up, and drop a lot of balls. But a lot of things stick, I think, if you're brave enough to just go, oh, I'll try this. So I went to ad school and I tried. And I realized that a lot of the kids, and now I can say kids, if you're like 25, I'm like, you kids.
There's millennials now, yeah. Okay.
So technically I'm a millennial, but I feel like I'm about 70 years old inside my head. I'm a very old soul. All these kids, their aspirations were to be doing, in 10 years after graduating, what I was doing then. I was in a small agency, so I had the ability to really make a big difference. It's hard when a lot of them had dreams of like going to the big London, gonna go to the city, I'm gonna go to the city. Yeah. And they will start out, in a very, a role that doesn't allow them to like have much sway because it will be a big agency. But I was in a tiny agency and I had a lot of freedom to try out ideas and to kind of go, I think we should do this and let's go chase this brand. And so I just looked around and realized that I was already doing what they were there studying to want to do. And I just thought, I just quit.
Right. So you quit ad school?
I quit ad school.
Interesting.
Because I went, I had a couple of professors who did change my life. And when I look back with retrospect, I go, oh, that's why I was there. Because I was meant to meet that person. I was meant to take that class. I was meant to learn that thing. So I did everything but the dissertation, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you did all the learning, but then...
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's cool. It's in my head. I paid for the whole thing in one go, and I was just like, okay, cool. I got the knowledge, and next, which is how my brain works. I just bounce around a lot. So I realized that they are working really, really hard to get where I am, and I don't know. Most of the kids that I think did end up finishing that program, none of them are in anything remotely reflecting advertising.
Are you really serious?
That I can tell from like following them on Instagram or whatever.
What do you think that is?
I think it's this survivorship bias. I think it's this, this
okay.
is what I want to do. This is what I perceive that these people did to get there. I will take those steps. I will get there too. Most of us just fell into it, Right. So that's not to, I have a friend who has went into training to be a, I keep wanting to say barista, a barrister.
Two different things, but sound like the same thing. Yeah.
Both equally important in our lives. Wanted to become a barrister, which I guess in America is that like a judge? Like a big time fancy lawyer. Yeah. And he got a physics degree. And then you can kind of fall into law from that kind of jumping off point sometimes.
Because physics is so intense and therefore...
Right. So if you're capable of learning, at that level, then it's kind of easy to make the transition. And
cause and effects in physics and cause and effects in law.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
I get that.
So I don't have a huge respect for doing things the right way. Mm-hmm. I think you can end up at points in a lot of different ways. The most important thing in life, no matter whether it's business or whatever, it's all who you know. It is not what you know, it's who you know. Because the stuff that we learned at ad school is it was just a few years ago, a lot of it's going to be obsolete already.
Yeah.
So it's the people I met and the relationships I built and the connections I was able to make, the networking of it all, that makes the biggest difference.
They've got you where you, the position you're in now.
No, I was already doing this when I decided to go to ad school.
Okay.
So how my job at Global Fire came about was I knew the founders, and I saw one of them at the village Christmas thing that happens here in England. And I just walked up to one of them and I said, I think you can grow your business. I really want to work for you. Can I come talk to you? I went and talked to them, and then they hired me. It's who you know. And now being there, I get emails every single day from people who are like, hi, do you have any jobs? Hi, I want to do an internship. Hi, and I'm like, my heart goes out to them. They want to do work experience and stuff, but I'm like, much more likely to give an opportunity like that to somebody who's I already have a connection with, who's already, who already knows us.
Yes.
Further solidifying the idea that it's all who you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So they could be the smartest people ever, but we don't have the time to test those waters before deciding if they're a right fit for us or whatever.
I think I completely appreciate that, because I think that the staff that I've worked with as well, it's like, if they have friends that are kind of like, who are like them, they're going to work with a similar ethic, and you're like, great, that's kind of like not carbon copy, but you know what I mean? You're going to get a similar ilk of type of person. And I think that a lot of the stuff that we've done through client work and things has become kind of like, we get recommended to other big kind of companies because of the work we've done with the first company.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's the
Exactly.
referrals and everything comes from that.
Yeah. So the referral basis is all about relationship, and finding opportunities to do what you want to do is all about relationship too. And I think, I would say to people who are coming up who want to go into advertising or marketing or whatever, find a small business that you can build a great success story for.
Yeah.
And start from that jumping off point. You have to put in a lot of elbow grease. You're not just going to jump out of university and into an agency with a ball pit and beer on tap where you can ride skateboards around the office. It's like that stuff, those are fairy tales, the places like that, those people get those jobs because of who they know.
Do you think there's been a change over the last 5-10 years maybe of like seeing these Justin Bieber type personas and thinking, I want to achieve that, here's the pathway, it seems like I took the same path but I didn't get the result? Do you think that's partly because the mindset they have going into that is like, they've been trained throughout school, if you do this, this and this, you get the result, sort of thing, and then it's like, right, when I look at my future, that's what the result I want, I do this, this and this, and therefore I get it? And then do you think there's some level of merit in focusing on what you want to achieve, or do you think like just go for it, just head in that right direction and see what comes of it?
Okay, well, there's 3 things that makes me think to say. Hopefully I can remember them all by the time I'm done blabbering, the first and second one. But the first thing is, I think the Justin Bieber phenomenon, I think has a lot to do with storytelling. Mm-hmm. I don't know that when the Beatles made it big, there's loads of information out there for their fans about the steps that they took to get there. Mm-hmm. It was like the music, here's the music, we're here. We're so obsessed with storytelling now that we want, we followed him from his, from drumming at 5 years old in videos on YouTube through to where he is now. Because the marketing machine around him made his story a big deal. So it made it look like an everyman kind of possibility.
Yes.
So that's one thing. And I did forget number 2 and 3.
Well, you'll trigger in a second. It'll come.
Do we have goals and work towards them? I never did.
Yep.
So
I never worked with goals.
I never did a business plan. I do not have dreams and I do not have goals, because my life right now is so much bigger than anything I could have ever dreamed for myself. Dreams limit me, I never imagined I would write a book. I never imagined I would have huge names chasing me and asking if they could buy rights to my online classes. I never would have thought I could have sold my first blog. It was just my thoughts, random, like lessons about photography, and I ended up with 800 of them and someone bought them. I never could have planned that stuff. I couldn't have planned to be in advertising. I couldn't have planned to, growing up in the South, being a homeschooled kid in Florida, I never dreamed I would even go to Europe, much less be living in England, So how do you get somewhere? I have a huge ethos of saying yes. Like that movie Yes Man.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I
so cool.
say, yeah, sure, to loads of things. I'm very good at saying no. I know the things that aren't going to serve me well. And I have said yes to some stuff that, got me in trouble. But even those things, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything that I've ever done to get me where I am. But saying yes to things, testing things out, going, yeah, I'll meet you. So I ended up meeting you because I listen to podcasts. I'm a voracious reader. I'm an autodidact, so I teach myself anything and everything that I want to know. I go, I'm interested in engineering. I will listen to an engineering podcast. I'll listen to some audiobooks. I'll read something on the train. I always take trains where I can so that I can actually be working and being productive. If I'm driving, I'm listening to podcasts and audiobooks. So I listened to this guy's podcast, Jason Swank. Hey, Jason. And you were on there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that guy Tom is in England and he's only a couple hours away from me. So I reached out to you and was like, hey, we're here. And now I'm sitting here talking to you now. And who knows what this will bring, So it's all just about like saying yes to opportunities that life presents to you and testing things out, not being afraid and being fearless and trying things out. Travel.
So
go to like bizarre business networking thing. I go to like these networking things at 6 o'clock in the morning, business breakfast, and I just make connections with all sorts of people and then end up with all sorts of cool contracts and relationships, and you just gotta say yes and try things.
Very interesting. Do you think so that plus relationships has been the pathway that you've taken to get to where you are and what you're doing today, sort of thing?
Yeah. I am I'm all about connection. Mm-hmm. I find it really important to connect with people and not be like, what can I get from you? What what business do you have to offer me? I am a huge fan of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe the most important thing to people is themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I always want to know, what do you do, and what are you into, and what do you people don't get that opportunity very often. Everybody's going me, and I hate me, us, we led advertising. When I go into a website, it's like we love video production. I'm like, yay for you. Yeah. What do your clients love about, like, what, I'm like a potential customer. What's important to me? You haven't even bothered to try and figure that out. I saw this thing once from I was getting on a flight, and I think it was British Airways or someone, and there's a great big new banner, and it was like, we love flying or whatever. I was like,
love flying.
Oh, yay for you. A lot of us don't. We have to do it. So yeah, connecting with people and giving people the opportunity to talk about themselves is a great way to establish a relationship.
It's funny, the one thing that, because we did a bit of a website redesign, or really more of a message redesign sort of thing, I was looking at lots of agencies to kind of get some inspiration as to what people are doing, and so many of those first pages are like, our culture or something. I was like, who honestly cares about what an agency's culture is until you really are interested in doing business with that culture, with that agency maybe. But I was just like, I don't even know really what our culture is. I think I know what we stand for and what we're about and stuff, but whether that's of interest to the first thing of interest to someone who's just visited the website, I don't think so. Yeah. Unless there's...
It just seems like a vanity... Different. It's just like a vanity project, really. Yeah. I think the front page of my website, we talk about... it's hard to present yourself as an option without talking about what you do. But rather than saying... I don't know, let me see what the front page of my website says. I did write it.
Now you got to check it now, yeah.
Yeah, from idea to completion, we're your creative video department. So we have to say we, but the point is, this is what you will get. From idea to completion, you get a creative, we are your creative video department. A lot of our bigger clients have found that we are integrated into their inner workings of their company, like we are in a department of their, we're just an arm of their company. We're not like outside guys. So, that's one of the biggest insights that we got when we started talking to our big clients. And so that's what we put on the front page of our website. This is what you will get. Because you are the most important thing to you. And I am the most important thing to me. It's a human insight that we would be foolish to ignore.
Yeah.
And to act like the most important things to us isn't ourselves. I love talking about myself right now. This is so fun. And giving people the opportunity to tell you about themselves is great. I went to this business networking thing, and the guy to my left was in, I said, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm in insurance. I was like, that is so cool. He's like, no, not really. I was like, no, that is cool. Because, and I was like, I'm insured, left, right, and center. I love insurance. I feel so safe, blah, blah, blah. And I started talking to him about life insurance and whole term and half term and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I am genuinely interested. And I knew about those things because I allowed people in insurance to talk to me and just download into my brain what they know.
I find that I can find the interest in anything. It's weird. I feel like there's some things there's some things that are off. Like sometimes we get an inquiry from a certain type of business that's like so geeky I don't even understand it. I'm like, I can't get my head around it. Maybe someone on the team can, but not me. But a lot of the times I'm like, as soon as you start realizing what the business does or what the person's really into, I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting. And on the face of things, it's not very exciting at all. But once you get into it and the intricacies of it, I love unpacking that and understanding it.
Yeah. I had this photography client once. It was a family I was shooting in the woods, and we were walking through the woods, and the dad, the dad was lagging behind. I said, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm in insurance. I was like, oh, cool, what kind of insurance? He's like, well, da, da, da. And the more and more I delved into it, the more I found out that the company that he works for was one of the insurers of the Titanic. And really? I have a huge interest in the Titanic disaster. For some reason, it's been like a lifelong obsession for me.
Sure thing, right?
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we got to talk all about that, and I learned all about the multiple insurance policies it took to insure the Titanic. It was so big, no one company could handle it. Just from asking somebody what they do. If you were a botanist, I would think you're the most interesting person in the world. Yeah. And learning all of these things, it's hard to be an advertiser without having the human insight. And you can't gain human insight unless you start being curious about humans.
So in terms of clients you're working with at the moment, is there anything that you're doing at the moment that's like super good fun and you're like,
yes,
go for it? What are you up to?
Yes. So my favorite thing that we're working on at the moment, I don't know if I should name the company because it's all early stages, but there's a few different ways that you can work when you're in this creative space. You can wait for clients to come to you. You can be the recipient of RFPs, requests for proposal. You can pitch against other agencies, and there's a lot of different ways of doing it. One of my funnest, and we do all of the above. One of my funnest ways that I engage new clients is I come up with ideas on spec. Okay. They don't know I exist at all. And I go, what would it be really fun to advertise for? What would it, or do I already have a story in my head that could fit a certain brand or a certain industry or whatever?
So you kind of come with the idea already and go to the client?
Sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
And you don't know if they're shopping, you don't know if they are looking for something, but it's a great way to introduce yourself. It can be a lot of work unless you have a whole idea that just drops into your head, which happens sometimes. So one time we were doing an ad for Xerox, and we went to their headquarters to film some pieces to cam, and there was this coffee machine. There was the countertop, and this coffee machine was like a spigot, and there was nothing, but you push a button, coffee came out of it, and it was like coffee on tap, and I was like, what the heck? This is black magic, this is amazing. So I found out the name of it. There was like a little brand on the side, and I tweeted them and I said, this is amazing. I want to get in touch with you. I want to make an ad with you. That didn't end up working, but it didn't end up happening. And I'm kind of happy because they were a business to business model, and I really buzz on B2C, business to consumer types of advertising. I want to talk to people who are buying stuff for their lives.
Got it, okay.
And so I was in the shower one day and I was picturing, like, I knew there were coffee machines out there that work on mobile devices. So you could, you'd have your phone and you could like enable your coffee machine or whatever from your phone and then go get your coffee and it would be made. So I got this idea. It was like a strap line for one of these kinds of products. So I got my associate, I said, research coffee machines and find me some of the coolest ones that work on mobile devices. And she found me a brand, a new startup company, a tech company in the city. And I got in touch with their marketing director. And I said, I have this idea and I really want to run it by you. So I pitched her the idea and she said, I don't like it. And I was like, okay, fine. Can I get in touch with you in a few months and let's catch up? And I went to get in touch with her and she wasn't there anymore. So I went on their LinkedIn page and I found out who was the director at the moment of marketing, and I got in touch with him and said, I pitched this idea previously, can I come and talk to you? And he was like, okay, cool, like I like it, but we're actually launching something bigger and better in a few months. Let us get that underway and then we'll get in touch with you. And so now we are in the very infant stages of like a big global glossy commercial campaign.
All because you came up with the idea in the shower and then you can
for a random product, found the one that I wanted to work with, found a company who I think their culture really fit us, who was like, I just could picture us working for. I could picture us making something for and with them. And
how do you get in touch with them? Do you just like literally email them or do you just text them or whatever? Or?
Well, I got in touch with the director, the marketing director, or the marketing manager. They're rather small, so they don't have this huge hierarchy just yet. Which a lot of big companies, they'll be like the brand manager and then the marketing director and the marketing managers and marketing executives and this whole. I was able to just get the decision maker.
Just straight in, yeah.
Yeah. And the point wasn't necessarily to sell that idea. The point was to be like, we can come up with ideas. Here's a good one to get us going. Can we talk? And so, and I guess a lesson for that woman would have been say yes. I mean, like someone's coming for something for free. Yeah, right. Exactly, that would have been great for us if she had said, I'm not really so like into it, but it was like a total shutdown, which is fine because it led us to where we ended up today, which is where we needed to be.
Well, the fact that she's not there much longer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's why she's not there. But it was, so that's the funnest thing that we have going on at the moment.
Very cool. It's interesting, like one of our biggest clients that we've got came from a video that I did for them. I just had the idea of like, oh my god, this would be perfect for this potential client.
Okay.
And I just created a video on our iPhone and just sent it to them. And I just said their name in it. I said, I've got this great idea, like not a great idea. It was like, we can really, really do amazing for you because I've seen the opportunity here. Mm-hmm. I think you'd be perfect fit for it. The guy was Mason. So I created the video for Mason, sent it to him just via LinkedIn, Twitter, everything I can think of to get it in front of him. And he got back in touch, and now they're one of our biggest clients.
That's so cool.
And we've been with them for like 2.5 years or so. So
that's
it's been
so cool.
Very cool.
It's hard because it's like this fine line between cold calling, which I hate, and trying to take a cold lead and turn them into a warm one, all in one interaction. But it's fun. It's a fun way to get out there.
So I want to know a little bit more information about your creative process, like how you go about taking an idea. I mean, maybe you get ideas in the shower all the time, I don't know. But it'd be great to know how you'll go about, like, if a company came to you and said, all right, here's our product, or here's what we're looking to launch very soon. How would you break it down? What would your process tend to be? What would you start out with to begin with? Like, just found out about the product or the business or the launch, and they're saying, okay, we'd love to engage with you guys. What tends to happen in the industry anyway, like from the start? Is it like a pitch to begin with, or do you pitch lots of ideas, or and do you have to come up with all those ideas for one pitch? How does it tend to work with you guys?
Okay, so there are a lot of different ways that it can work. One of the most prevalent, however unhelpful, ways is that a brand will put out an RFP to their the agencies who are on their books to be able to pitch for new work.
Okay. So they might have like 5 or 6 companies that they think,
yeah,
like, these are our
if this is
go-to
a
people.
huge company like a Fortune 500 or a blue chip company or whatever, they will typically have, for their really big stuff, like their big advertising, external brand things, they will have agencies on their roster. Those agencies will be invited to pitch. Now, it's assumed, I think, usually that these agencies will come with ideas that have been born out of many billable hours worth of ideation with the team.
Yep.
This is what we call working on spec. And there is a movement of creative agencies who are saying no to spec. And there's a great video on YouTube, Say No to Spec. And it was made by this agency who later on did that Alpha Zelo Kilo, Alpha, Jason covered it on his
Oh, I haven't seen that one, but okay.
podcast.
It's one for the,
they made like a
shortlist.
fake. They made like a fake persona for their agency, like real douchebaggy, like Mad Men wannabe kind of. We're just gonna drink like whiskey and come up with ideas for you. And actually, they got really great press out of that. But before all that, they made a video campaign called "Say No to Spec," and the idea was. If you walked into a cafe and went, I want like a full English breakfast, or in America, like pancakes. But I want you to make it and I want to taste it and then I'll let you know if I want to buy it, if I think it's good enough or not. If you walked into a cafe and said that, they would tell you to like, get on your bike. And so this is the way that a lot of brand clients engage new agencies for work. They'll say, put loads of time and effort into coming up with ideas, and if we like your ideas, then we'll buy them. The idea is the most valuable part. So if you had an idea that was good enough, you could film it with your iPhone and it would still land really well because the idea is strong.
Yeah. So they kind of like look past the actual like production or how it's coming. So looking for just
people
the core
seem
idea.
to think that's the most valuable part. And a lot of trained monkeys can make some pretty stuff, but they can't. It's the idea. It's the script. It's the story. It's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the most valuable thing. Look at the Blair Witch Project. It was filmed on a camera that they bought from Circuit City and then returned a few days. They like had to shoot the whole movie in 30 days so they could return the camera in time. And it's one of the it's a massively grossing movie because the idea was strong.
Yeah.
It wasn't filmed amazingly well.
One of the guys, Andy, who's involved with that project, is actually a client now as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I used to live near one of the executive producers of that in
really?
Florida.
Very
So
cool.
look at that.
So all the connections come together.
5 degrees of separation. So that's one of the ways that brands often engage new agencies. Now, it's, I understand the thinking. It's a big leap to give your budget to someone who has, sight unseen, not yet given you an idea of what it is you're getting. So what we do is we would go to a pitch like that with a capabilities deck. We would go, here's a presentation of what we're capable of. This is work we've done in the past. Here are some directions that we think that you might go in. We might show them examples of other ads and go, we love this one. We love that one. We like this element of this. We think, the cinematography of this would work really well for your brand. But we wouldn't necessarily come with the actual ideas because that's the most valuable bit. We come with what is needed to instill confidence and faith in us in order to then start engaging.
It's almost like some foundations to build some ideas off that, to say, here's what we kind of like the look of, here's what we think would work really well for you, and we'll go away and think of other ideas based on what you like.
And then once you engage us as the agency on this project, step 1 is pre-production, and that is when we, start coming up with this this idea.
Yeah.
You can lead with case studies and say, there was a time where a brand came to us and then they engaged us and then we came up with these ideas and, so on and so forth.
So even if they requested that you came in with ideas, you'd still say, okay, I'm going to come with some kind of like pre-ideas of like...
I call them, I'll go, yeah, sure, we'll come with ideas. But the idea is, we'll make you an ad that looks like this one. Here, watch these commercials for Coca-Cola or whatever. This is the idea. No, but it's like the actual concept can't really happen until you start getting intimate with the project. Quite often the brief will have enough information that you need to, come up with what you need to. That said, I'm not such a massive snob that if Coke came to me and said, "Oh, we'll let you pitch," that I wouldn't be up, 24 hours a day working with a team. We'd probably actually come up with some really massive stuff, because those are opportunities you can't just give up. But sometimes you get an RFP and you read it and it looks like it was a template thing, and you kind of think, I think they think this is how they're supposed to do it. But if you just get in touch with that person who's actually the decision maker on that project, or the person you'd be pitching to, and go, hey, what are you really expecting? What can we really do to help facilitate this? Sometimes you find out that you're the only one pitching, and you're like, oh, this is cool. Let's just come. Can we just come and talk?
Right. I see.
The RFP looks like it's been sent out to tons of people, but it's really only just you and like one other agency or whatever. So that's where the ability to just be relational comes in, and so you find out what's really needed. But your real question was, how do we come up with ideas?
Yeah. So let's say, for example, they've said, okay, yep, love the pre-ideas, so to speak. You come with like some foundational stuff and say, we love this. We think this will work really well with you guys. At that point, do you tend to find like a big idea? Do you tend to like work with a slogan, for example, or do you think, right, okay, this is what? Do you have like a vision of like, here's what I imagine it to be like, and throw it around your team and they say other things, or what tends to be? Is there no such like approach like that, or is it just exactly like I've just described it, or how does it tend to work?
It's all of the above,
right,
because sometimes the brief from the client will say something like, "This is the strapline we're working with. What can you you need to make something that goes with this campaign. We've already come up with the campaign.
Yep.
Now you need to make the stuff to flesh it out." So one time we did this. It was a competition piece, but it was for Volvic juice, and their thing was little everyday wins. They had to be 15-second ads that flesh out the idea of little everyday wins.
Okay.
And so one we did was succeeding at parallel parking. The other one we did was a dad who succeeded at doing a really intricate hairdo for his daughter for a party. And then the other one was, guy goes to make a sandwich and there's a little tiny block of cheese left in the fridge, and he had to succeed at like actually covering the whole sandwich. And, he like, it was like a showdown with this little block of cheese. And they were all 15 seconds long, and they were all about, little everyday wins. So the client made it easy for us because they said, these are the parameters that we're working within. This is the concept. Run with that. Sometimes it's like, this is the product that we're advertising. Go. So sometimes we'll make ourselves a strapline.
Yep.
And sometimes the strapline will actually be part of the ad, the idea, but sometimes it will just be like an undergirding kind of foundation that gives us something to work with. Sometimes I'll take the brief and make a new brief for our team that is a little bit more like, now this is our tailored version of this brief with a little bit of a direction. Sometimes we will take stories that we already have in our mind, and I have a couple stories that I've heard from people in the past in my head, and I think someday one of these will be perfect for a brand.
So you kind of have them in the drawer, so to speak, and like ready to come out.
And sometimes I'll open the drawer in my mind and go, does one of these fit that kind of like, is there a way that we can tell this little story and like slingshot it back around to be relevant for that brand or that product or whatever. Lots of different ways to do it, but in the end, no matter what avenue we take, there has to be an element of the team sitting down. Sometimes the team is just two of us. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's my whole agency. Sometimes I'll pull all 10 of us into a lunchtime meeting and get everyone to ideate.
Even if they're not necessarily ideas people and creative people, you bring them in as well.
That's the best, because the ideas people think like we are, have our ways. And sometimes the best ideas I get are just from my kids. I'll go, what do you think about this? And they'll be like, tell me a story about Santa Claus or something. And I'm like, oh, that is actually completely relevant. That's so brilliant. So ask kids, I don't know. It's just so many different ways to come up with ideas. But yeah, in one way or another, at some point, we have to sit down and go, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That takes us on a journey of some techniques and some just free flow. And, sometimes we have to reconvene, go, okay, go away. You do some research into this. You start thinking about that. We'll come back tomorrow.
Where does the first part of it start? Is it the sort of thing where you say, we need to give an idea? So if you're given the slogan, I suppose the idea is kind of given to you to a certain extent. And like, here's the message you've got to resonate with in a roundabout way, whether it be direct or indirect. But if you are given that brief of like, hey, look, this is the product, you go for it. Or here's the launch, or here's the business we're going for, like, you go for it. Is that harder, or do you find that like easier? And I don't know, like I'm just trying to think of like that first thing that you would do. Like if you say, right, I'm going to work on this client today, what would be the first kind of thing you start thinking about?
So the first thing I do, and I hate it when I watch this kind of stuff and everything's all theoretical and you're like, thanks. I feel like I learned nothing. I just watched you for an hour and I learned nothing. So let me take you through a session.
Yeah, or the opposite, where it's like you reflect on it and it sounds so much better than actually what actually happens. Do you know what I mean?
You're like, actually,
I just sit there and I don't do that. I do this instead. Yeah.
I firmly believe that anybody can come up with ideas if they are given the tools. It is an art and a science. It is head and heart. It is all of the above. And I think anybody is capable of doing it if they learn a few simple things. So
cool. Okay.
The first most important thing to recognize is that we tend to, as animals, we tend to just look for the most safe, predictable route to solving a problem.
Right.
We tend to want to stay in the pack. We don't want to venture outside of our safety and our worldview. So that can get us into a lot of trouble. The first way that can get us into trouble is we tend to be vertical thinkers. So Edward de Bono, ages ago, wrote this book, Lateral Thinking. And it's about, we tend to just work up to, the idea. You'll get one idea and go, okay, great, that's the thing. Lateral thinking is about going, there's an idea, cool. There's another idea, awesome. And you just keep going. And the first most obvious ideas are usually the chaff, that blows away in the wind. You have to get those they're not bad ideas necessarily. You have to get the most obvious things out of the way first. And that's an important part of the process. Sometimes you circle back around to them.
Okay, so you'll go through all the obvious ones and just keep on writing, just keep on bringing up more and more ideas.
So I'll take you through the cold hard, I will take you through an ideation session in a second. But so this kind of lateral thinking is important. It's important for us to acknowledge that we quite often just want to get to a solution and stop there. Yeah. If you come up with a great idea, don't stop. Write it down and come up with another great idea. Come up with 50 great ideas. Don't stop just because you think you got the winner. Yeah. So that's the most important, that's an important thing to start with. The next thing is when you're working in the confines or in the construct of a creative team, even if it's just with one other person. And this is something I learned from Tina Fey. So I'm a huge fan of Tina Fey. In my fantasy world, she's my BFF.
Okay. She'd be a great BFF.
She would love me. We would be like, we'd be tight. She'd be my roommate. She'd know how I take my tea. She's the best. So
you keep on saying that on enough videos. You never know. One day.
Tina, if you're watching, I love you.
We can do I'll do some targeting for.
Yes, can we micro target to Tina Fey?
Yes.
You and me, baby. Let's do coffee. So I love her book, Bossy Pants. In it, she's talking about, and I was also bizarrely, because I've tried out a million things in my life. I was trained as a kid. I took improv comedy classes, and so I was totally on her page when there was this like rules of improv comedy chapter in her book Bossy Pants. And in it, she was saying one of the most important rules of improv comedy is to never ever shut your partner down. Mm-hmm. So if you say to me, "I have a gun," you don't go. I don't go, "Oh, that's not a gun," because then the gag is, it's just like, like, okay. Yeah. So if we're on the stage and we're riffing off of each other, and I say to you, "I have a gun," you should be like, "Yes, and it's full of water," or, "Oh, don't shoot me with your," you have to go with it. Yeah, yeah. So the thing there is yes, and. Okay. You never say, "No, it's not." That's a bad idea. So I, in the very first time I ever led an ideation session at work, I was like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to treat this like improv, and we're never, ever going to shut anybody down. So we never, and I am still trying to train myself in this way, so I catch myself doing it all the time, and I'm really trying not to. But we never say, but, or right. That's not a good idea, or we do not judge each other's ideas at all. We always, if we need to say something, we always build on it and add to it. So if you were to give an idea that really had nothing to do with what we were talking about, I wouldn't say no. I would go, yes, and how could we apply that to this brand? How could we apply that to this product? Which can actually lend to some really great ideas, because you're taking something completely outside of that realm and actually finding out how to apply it to this thing. And that's actually that's actually where some great ideas come from. So this is an ideation session. We all sit around, and usually there's like a whiteboard, and it's important to have someone leading the session, and that person can help facilitate if people start getting judgmental on other people's ideas and stuff. Yeah. Also, I'm just a bossy pants control freak, and I like to be in charge. So,
so it looks like you'll be taking control there.
So I have the pen and the whiteboard, or I delegate someone to be the whiteboard writer. And so I go, okay, so here's the problem. Here's the advertising or the marketing problem. Here's the thing that we're solving. This product exists. These people don't know about it. Mm-hmm. This product exists. These people they know about it, but they don't think they need it. This, whatever the brief is. So we lay out the problem, and then we usually have a free flow of just brainstorming, of throw your ideas out there. Let's get the obvious stuff out. We kind of purge all of the obvious ideas. Everything is written down. You can record your ideation sessions, on audio if needed, or videotape it for posterity. If you might come up with something amazing, and now it's part of your company history. So it's good to record this kind of stuff. You could have been the start of some huge movement that you find 10 years later.
It'd be nice to have it on film.
It'd be nice to have it on film. So we get the obvious stuff out of the way. And then sometimes those things end up being the thing. They end up being the idea that sticks. But it's really important, and it's also important to come up with really bad ideas. I'm like, okay, give me your really bad ideas. Stuff that you think would never, ever work for this. Because you just never know where that stuff will lead. And because we have a non-judgmental atmosphere where everybody is free to throw out whatever they want, however simplistic it might be, or whatever. Sometimes we find at the end of the whole process, it was, sometimes every once in a while it was literally one of those first most obvious things. But in order to know that that's the right thing, you have to experiment with loads of wrong things to know what's right, which is like so many things in life is like that. You have to date the wrong guys, and you have to experiment, taste loads of horrible things, because that's how you know what's right for you. So we get all that stuff out of the way, and then we do the funnest bit for me, which is actually engaging in some specific ideation. Ideation is like a buzzword now for idea creation. We create ideas with some certain techniques. So one of my favorite techniques is taking this product, usually it's a product. Even if it's a service, you can imagine it being you can productize it in your mind in order to succeed at this. But if this product or service was a human being, what attributes would they have?
Okay.
If they were personified.
Interesting. Okay.
So, there's an ad for, it's Discover or MasterCard, I think, something like that, and it's called The First Date, and you could YouTube
I think
it.
I've seen it, actually, yeah.
So it's two people at a restaurant, and you can tell they're kind of awkward, they're on their first date, and then this hand goes poof up through the table, and all of a sudden this guy appears, and he goes, "Hey, I'm Bill, and I'm here to make things awkward." And he's like, "She had the steak, you had the salad, he took a sip of your drink when you went to the bathroom." And so Bill is there making stuff really awkward. And then, the guy just pulls out his phone, he's like, "Should we just take care of this?" They split the bill with their MasterCard app or whatever, and then they get back to their date. So if you were to take certain inanimate objects and personify them, what would they be like? Would they be, bossy? Would they be, what character would they have? Would they be awkward? Would they make your life awkward? Would they, so another one that I love, and so I love commercials. I love advertising. I love print ads. When we go to the cinema and there's like 40 minutes of commercials, I'm like, yes, I'm so excited.
You get there mega early just to watch all the ads.
I love the commercials at the beginning. So I don't have terrestrial TV. I only have Apple TV. So I don't even get to watch commercials at home. So I watch commercials in the cinema and I judge them and I go, I hate this one. I love that one. There was actually a commercial a couple years ago. This is the power of advertising, and this is my brain getting off on a tangent. I will come back, I promise. But I love this commercial. And I actually saw the brief when the brief was out for like tender, and it was how to engage, a certain type of woman in exercise, and then it became the This Girl Can campaign. The National Lottery did this ad, and it's the soundtrack to the commercial is Missy Elliott. What's the song? Not Get Jiggy With It. That's someone else. What's it called? Get Your Freak On. Right.
Get Your Freak On.
So
yeah.
when that commercial was so emotive to me, because I was like, yes, like these girls are so empowered. And I think there was a girl with Down syndrome who's like a badass swimmer, and then there was this like other girl who was like, you wouldn't expect her to be a runner, but she was just loving it. And I felt so empowered for these women. And now when I hear Get Your Freak On, I cry.
That's so nice. So the power of that song has become so much stronger for you, yeah.
I have had little tears when I hear Missy Elliott come on, which is ridiculous. But I was so attached to that ad, and it made me so emotional. So
who was the ad for again?
That the National Lottery was just doing a campaign to support, getting women exercising.
Gotcha.
Anyone and everyone, no matter your body type or whatever. I love commercials and I judge them. And I try to work backwards. Whenever I see a commercial or an ad, I work backwards and try to picture what the brief said for that. And I try and picture what techniques could have been used to come to that result.
Okay, so you kind of reverse engineer that ad backwards to the pitch.
Yeah, that's an exercise I do in my mind. So I ride the tube a lot in London. I ride the train system a lot.
Is this one of your techniques, by the way? Is this one of your kind of like your ways of doing things?
No, that's just an everyday, that's a lifestyle thing of mine.
Oh, I see. So you'll see ads and you kind of like working it out.
I'm constantly working backwards when I see an ad, trying to imagine how they got to that stage. Because then it helps me, I guess, when we do get a brief or we're working on an idea, it kind of just helps me. I'm just constantly, it's just something I do.
It's really interesting. I do similar things, but from the customer's perspective. So if I see someone buying something, like an iPhone or whatever it might be, I always try and imagine, like, how did that happen? How did they get to that point and work it backwards, sort of thing? Like, did they have to see an ad first, or did the latest email come out to say, oh, our new product's out, or what triggered all of that sort of thing? So it's it's great. It's interesting from the customer's perspective. Like I always do that. It's a bit weird and geeky, but
no, it's so important because they are the most important thing, and we're often we're advertising things that we're not the audience. So how do you become the audience? How do you how would a vegan art director advertise for McDonald's, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you have to get into the head and the mind of the audience. So
Anyway, you're on the tube.
yeah, so I'm on the tube, and I saw a print ad that has always stuck with me, and it's this personification thing.
Okay.
It was for Audible, where you can listen to audiobooks. And I think it was a person sitting on the train with their headphones in, and Stephen King, someone huge, was reading to them on the train. Or maybe they didn't have their earbuds in. Stephen King was literally just reading to them on the train.
Yeah.
And I was like, if Audible was a person, it would be Stephen King. It would be my favorite author, Jodi Picoult, like sitting and reading to me on the train.
Yeah.
And so I see stuff like that, and I work backwards, and I go, oh, that's the personification thing.
Yeah.
If this thing was a person, what would it be like? So that's one of the techniques that we use. We ask ourselves things like that all the time.
It's really interesting. Audible have just brought out a TV ad campaign now, because I've been a massive fan of Audible for a long time, and when it first started coming out, I was like, oh my god, this is like the best thing ever. I can actually just listen to
Busy
books.
people can read books now.
Yeah, exactly. And at triple speed as well. So I'm just like,
Oh, do you do that?
Oh, I'm just absorbing it so quickly. Yeah. It's funny. It's like the first few minutes,
idea.
you're just like, right, okay, really concentrate. But then you find your brain can pick it up that quickly.
That's a great tip.
It depends on the author, of course. If they're fast speakers already, and it's like, right, okay, I've got to slow it down a little bit. But no, what I found really interesting about their TV ad campaign at the moment is like a celebrity reading, and it might be the author of the book, or it's normally like a recognisable face. And they'll be reading, and the camera just slowly pans in closer and closer to the celebrity. And as they're reading, you kind of work it out in your brain that, like, hang on a second, that's part of a book, and it's not them just speaking to me. And immediately I was like, I bet that's for Audible. And then 5 seconds later, the logo comes up, and I'm like, there it is, it's Audible
so
sort of
cool.
thing. But it's really, for me, I was almost like anticipating, waiting to see the logo, and just like to confirm with myself. But that is a psychological technique to like build up this like brand, kind of like, oh, I bet it's this brand, and it is.
They must have nailed it then,
really
if you
clever.
knew what it was for.
Yeah, I was standing there with my wife, and the TV was on in the background, and it made me turn around, because it was very rarely does actually someone stop in a TV ad and just slow things down, just read to you. Normally it's like hype and sort of thing. And so that was when someone started reading, it caught my attention. And then I was just like trying to work it out as I watched it. And I was like, actually, they're reading. And I was like, I know what it is. It's Audible. And then as soon as it happens, I said to my wife, I was like, I bet this is Audible. I bet it's Audible. And then it came up. I was like, there we go. But it's amazing how you could almost like recognize more than just the brand. It was what their product does and everything about that. I could recognize that brand really quickly. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you as well. You were going on to something about that.
Yeah, so that's one of the techniques that we use is we literally sit down and riff and bounce off of each other. If this person was if this item was a person, is it a certain gender? Does it have a certain character? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel awkward? Does it make you feel empowered? Is it like a cheerleader for you, or is it like a butler? Is it like a how do you personify it? So that's one thing.
So it's a personification of the product, playing like a day in the life of sort of thing, picking up all like the, just like going with loads of ideas, sticking it all up on the whiteboard and seeing what comes up. That's
we
like
personify it and just see what
or,
happens. Yeah,
like moving or whatever. Yeah, very cool. Okay.
And then another thing is we ask ourselves, what's the worst thing that could happen if you didn't have this in your life?
Right.
What's the best thing that can happen if you do? What could be the ramifications of not having it? What's the fear factor? What's the, and then, you talk about, another really helpful thing is to, at the very beginning of this process, you really interrogate the brief. So you get so intimate with that brief, and you're able to just tear it apart and go, what does this mean? What does this mean? And the brief is a kind of a jumping off point. It's not uncommon to feel the urge to challenge the brief. Sometimes that is a possible route. It can be risky depending on who you're pitching to or whatever.
How is the brief normally created? Is it top down from like marketing directors of the company to say, here's what we want to do, or is it kind of like is it something they've thought about long and hard and thought about for years, and that's kind of the brand message as such, or is it just like, hey, this is what we'd like to do, open to ideas sort of thing? Or?
Sometimes it's a bit of it's like, who wrote this? You're like, you can tell that it's you're not too sure that they are sold on what they're saying.
Yes. Okay.
Sometimes it just depends on the brand. You would not second guess if Coke came to you and said, "This is what we're doing. You need to pitch something." You'd be like, "Okay, you're the boss." I wouldn't challenge a brief from such a strong brand. Mm-hmm. As I understand it, this has just barely been explained to me, because recently I sat down with a marketing friend and I went, I am so confused because I've got marketing executives who email me, but then I see marketing managers, marketing directors. So you've got like the brand director and the marketing director. I think they're kind of a lateral position. Yep. But then flowing down from them, you have so you'd have the marketing director, mm-hmm. Then you would have marketing managers. So the marketing director says, like, these are the goals, this is what we need to achieve. The marketing managers, I think, come up with strategy to achieve what they want them to achieve. Yeah. And then flowing down from there, you have marketing executives who are often charged with go out and these are the ideas, this is what we're making, go out and find these people. So I will get briefs from marketing executives who don't really have the sway to, if I really want to challenge a part of it, or if we need to expand the budget or understand something more fully, these marketing executives have to get those answers usually from the marketing managers. And so we have to empower them to actually, with the right assets that they need, to actually get those things from their marketing managers. So if we need to expand the budget, the marketing executives can't make that decision. They're, in the hierarchy, someone else is doing that. Mm-hmm. So we give them all the information that they need to pitch that with success to these people up here. So it's usually the marketing managers who come up with the strategy, mm-hmm. or the brief, and then it flows down to the marketing executives who are tasked with finding the production companies who are going to make them.
Cool.
That is so, that's my understanding of the really, really big companies we work within. And who knows, I could be completely wrong. But that's what my understanding. Sometimes it gives you that insight into, can you play with the brief ever so slightly? Depending on who's presented it to you.
Got it, okay, yeah.
It's not going to make their job very easy if you present them with a pitch that they can't take to their bosses. Yeah. You are not always pitching to the decision makers, the people who hold the budgets. And so you have to, you kind of have to know these things before you decide what you're doing. So yeah, we interrogate the brief. One of the most, and we don't often get the time to do this, but it's very important and it can be very fruitful. When you interrogate this brief, you get through your first kind of brainstorm, it's on your mind, you put it in the back of your mind, and then you move on with your life for a week or 2 weeks. It's always there, it's always simmering, it's on the back burner, on a slow simmer. And you get some space away from it. And then you start living your life and looking around and experiencing things through the lens of this problem that you have to solve. And that's a really, valuable part of the process, is forgetting about it for a couple weeks. Or coming back to it here or there, or starting a folder of things that make you think of it, or, hearing stories and, getting out there and talking to people and seeing what comes of it. It's really interesting.
I've been reading a book called Persuasion by Cialdini. We were talking about it earlier, and a lot of the kind of like approaches that he'll take and understanding is like, they'll notice that if someone's done a certain activity or seen something earlier on, it massively influences their mindset, like just minutes later or even hours later or even days later. So they have some people where they would say, for example, there's a culture whereby females will believe they're not great at maths if they're surrounded by a lot of men, sort of thing, or if they're with male teachers, for example. And if they're put in a different scenario where they don't have to answer the first thing is, are you male or female, and they have to confirm that, and they're not surrounded by men, then if they're all girls together and female kind of teachers there as well, their scores go up as a result, sort of thing. And it's just really interesting to see how different kind of the persuasion sort of thing, the things that happen just before influence what's about to happen coming up, sort of thing. And I wonder if having that approach of saying, right, I'm going to get into the brief of something and really kind of like understand it, tear it apart, interrogate it, think of some different like brainstorming activities, and then going away for 2 weeks or something like that and coming back to it. You're kind of like seeing the world in a slightly different way, looking for those ideas that are going to come up, and I wonder how much of an influence will come from that. Interesting.
Yeah, I think if it's in your mind, and you know that there's a like a deadline looming in the future, your mind, it's in there, and you are smart, and you can come up with the ideas. You just need to trust the process, I guess. And so I get a lot of my ideas when I'm doing menial tasks: washing dishes, ironing, washing my hair. I'll just be like thinking about nothing in particular. If I think too hard about something, I can't come up with and I think it's like that for a lot of people. But it's, so the coffee maker thing, that idea came to me after I'd given up a little bit and stopped thinking about it, and I wasn't thinking about it at all, and all of a sudden I got a strapline in my head. I was washing my hair, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it just came from like another world. It just kind of dropped into my head. And that's, once you experience it a few times, you can start trusting the process, then you can go, oh yeah, that's true, it does work. So, what are some of the other techniques that we use? So you talked about personification. You talked about breaking up the brief and like really interrogating it as well, and kind of like going away from it and coming back to it as well. What other kind of like techniques would you tend to focus on when you do that approach? So one time we were doing an ad for a TV company, and one of the USPs of the product is that you could watch your TV on the go, and always be abreast of the latest content, whatever TV show you watch. And if you start it on your TV but have to push pause, you can pick up where you left off on your phone or your tablet or whatever.
So it's cross-device. So
yeah.
Okay. So it's like Sky Plus or TiVo or something like that.
Right. If you had it in your phone as well. So you log into your TV account, and so you're watching terrestrial, TV, and you can continue watching it on your phone. It's a really cool thing. And so we were asking ourselves, so we were in a 3 or a 4-way ideas, and it wasn't even like an ideas session. We were kind of just sitting on the back of the sofa, I was kind of just leaning there, and my main ideas partner, Charlotte, she said something like, what is the worst thing that could happen if you didn't have this? Maybe one of those things is that you have to, and I don't remember who said this bit, and this is one of those things about brainstorming with groups. You don't really know who's responsible for it. I don't know who takes the glory for this great idea. But somehow we got to the solution that if you didn't have this in your life, you would have to endure coworkers reenacting last night's TV for you. That could be one of the worst things that could hapen. Okay, the original idea was actually that the CEO of the company, who was usually game for being in our videos, we were going to get him to go into a board meeting and force his lowly workers to reenact last night's episode of The Walking Dead. Or Breaking Bad, or whatever.
So he would walk in and reenact it for the good of the
room. he'd sit down and basically make you reenact, your thing. So that idea needed further development, as many ideas do, and so we ended up simplifying it to, there's 2 people working in an office, and the office buffoon is performing for them last night's episode of The Walking Dead. And so it all goes down in, very dramatic fashion. The guy ends up doing a death rattle on the floor, and they just step over him, and the other one, the one guy's like, I know, I watched it on the train on my way in today. And she's like, yeah, me too. So you can avoid office reenactments. That's the worst thing that could happen to you if you weren't able to watch the latest, greatest TV show. The show that everybody's watching at the moment, and you go into the office and they go, did you see last night's episode? You will always have been able to see it. Even if you have to commute to work, you can watch it on your way to work. That is not realistically gonna happen. Some guy's gonna enact a whole episode of last night's show for you, but that could be a possible worst thing that could happen.
So you really extrapolate that idea.
So
and
yeah,
go
it doesn't
crazy
have to be a real life thing. So that's, you know, one thing that we do. One technique, if you will, is we ask ourselves, what's the worst thing that could happen if you didn't have this?
Yeah.
How zany can you get with that?
I don't know if you saw the ad where it was about kind of like harnessing renewable energy, and it started off with this massive, great big guy, and he's obviously like just I don't know, it's a funny sketch where you don't know who he is to begin with, and all he's doing is just causing havoc everywhere he goes, and no one's really like taking any notice of him. And so say for example someone's reading the paper, all of a sudden he'll just walk by and just like smack it out their hands, or then it'd be a lady walking down the road with a skirt and he'll just like lift up the skirt and lift it over her head and stuff, and just like all this ridiculous stuff, and it turned out that he was very bored because he's not being used, and he was wind as such.
Personification of an inanimate object. That's awesome.
Plus also kind of the worst case scenario sort of thing of like what it would be like if wind just had its way sort of thing. And so I love that idea.
Cool.
And it was just so funny because you're watching it through, just seeing this guy just cause havoc.
Yeah.
And then it was like him on the couch with a psychologist at the end, I think it was, like saying, I've got no purpose in life any longer, sort of thing. It was really clever.
That's so great. I love that. See, it's so brilliant. People are so smart.
So we've got some ideas.
Some great stuff.
Working already. That's cool.
I love that.
So you walk me through. So it's kind of like you get the whole team together. You'll kind of get on the board, write a load of stuff down. Lateral thinking. Know things a bad idea. Kind of go through that route. And also go for the personification, best scenario, worst scenario. Ripping the brief apart, checking out where other avenues you can go as well. What other like processes or techniques or kind of like ideas do you tend to go through?
So I did say about the importance of getting out all the bad ideas. And sometimes people just consider the first ones to be bad. But one thing you can do is actually task everyone with coming up with intentionally bad ideas. Illegal things, illicit things, taboo things, you know, things that are not at all related to the product. Things that you think, you know, just come up with intentionally bad ideas. Right. And then once you have a bunch of those, you can take those and ask what the opposite of those things would be. So then you can come up with possibly good ideas. So you kind of reverse engineer from bad into good. So that's one thing that you can do. And I don't know if there's a name for that. That's just a use for your bad ideas.
An Elizabeth technique.
Yeah.
When you're going through that with the team, is there two things I suppose? Is that first of all, how does someone pitch an idea to the rest of the group and say, do you know, and the rest of the group nailed it, sort of thing? Is there a case of like someone tends to take the lead and therefore everyone listens in a little bit more intently to that one person who tends to create good ideas? Are there some people that haven't ever brought out a good idea and then like don't necessarily get listened to? I mean, it's kind of like politics, I suppose, within that idea creation process. Is there anything like that happens?
Sometimes everybody's interrupting each other. Sometimes people are jumping in and going, yes, and, which is like my little rule. And
it gets overplayed.
And things are bouncing around. Everybody's cool with that. You know, you will always have different characters. So there will be the person who's probably really quiet and then comes up with something brilliant. So there are some people you have to go, hey, John, what do you think? You know, invite them to share their thoughts. So, of course, you have different personalities at play there. As long as everybody's working together as a team, it should be cool that, like, interrupting isn't interrupting. Everyone's kind of excitable. And, you know, sometimes you have to re-interrupt to keep going with your idea. But it's, you know, you can all kind of work as a machine to get things going. Every once in a while, when I'm producing something or, you know, being the creative director or something or whatever, the lines are so blurred for a lot of these roles that I don't know what I'm the creative. But when I'm leading an effort like this, sometimes I will tell everybody, over the weekend, be thinking about this. This is the thing that we're going to be talking about on Monday. I will come to all of you separately. Sometimes I gather everybody's thoughts individually. We don't always get into a big session like this because these techniques, and some of them are, you know, we call them techniques, but a lot of them are just, you know, not even methods. They're just ways of thinking.
Yep. Because
these ways of thinking are so, you know, prevalent in our team now, we don't have to walk through everybody going, if it was a person, what would it be like? That's just the way we think. So I know when I say, here's a brief, think about this over the weekend, that's what everyone will naturally be doing. I can do that stuff while I'm driving. I don't need a whiteboard to be thinking about, what's, the worst that could happen. Yeah. And so sometimes I'll just go one by one to everybody if we don't have time for a whole massive brainstorm or whatever. So it takes many different forms. Mm-hmm. So yes, sometimes there's one leader who's like standing at the whiteboard, writing stuff down. Sometimes someone's just tasked with keeping notes on their laptop. In these sessions, we have a box and phones go in there. Laptops are not allowed except for the person who's keeping notes, unless the notes are just going on the whiteboard. That's important because it can be, especially as creatives, and a lot of us are kind of like frenetic, sort of bouncing around. It's really easy to just half listen and half play on our computer. And everyone needs to be equally engaged so that everybody is giving in, as much effort as their colleague.
And how do you know when you've like hit on a idea that you think, oh, we've nailed it, this is the one, sort of thing? Is there a case of like, is it kind of like we think it might be the one? Is it kind of a case of like narrowing down and saying, all right, not that one, this one's better, or is it a case of like, no, we've struck gold with that idea and everyone feels aligned with it, or like is it different?
I think quite often because if I'm the person who's leading, there's going to be a natural leader. Mm-hmm. Somebody is gathering all of these things because they have to write a pitch.
Yeah. Okay.
So if that's me, I take everything. And, sometimes we're going to sit down for an hour. And at the end of that hour, I go, okay, great. And if I feel like we've landed on something that I can go away and develop myself, or something that is ready to pitch, then that's it. Sometimes I'll say, let's get back together. Let's, you go do some research into this. Sometimes questions will come up in our mind and we'll go, oh, what does the target demographic believe about, this product? And we don't really know the answer to that. Sometimes the brief is like, sometimes the brand is so in line with the insights of their users that they can say, they believe they are healthy. They believe they wake up in the morning and this is what they tell themselves. This is what we want them to tell themselves after they watch this ad. Sometimes the brief is that specific. Sometimes we have to build that picture before we can even, sometimes that's part of the ideas process as we go, what does that person think, We create an image of who the customer is in our mind, and it's, a person, and this is their name, and what do they wake up in the morning believing? How do they feel when they go to bed at night? What are they using apart from this product? How are they solving this problem in their lives already? We build that picture ourselves in our mind.
Do you ever use things like focus groups, or like ever get into like interviewing different people like that, or do you just tend to go more yourself? Or
sometimes I'll throw stuff up on Facebook for my friends. I go, hey, does anyone here choose flavored water instead of soda, sugary drinks? Why? When you go to the, so I can ask those questions to people online, but usually it's the brands and the marketing teams who are coming to us. They've already done all that research, focus groups and like insights. That stuff should have been gathered by data people. So we don't do that as a production company.
It's interesting because I know that we speak quite a lot because I suppose I come from more of the science angle in terms of like we see the data every single day on everything we do. And we love the fact that we can do that. But it gives us insight sometimes. So like if we're advertising in a certain way, we can say, right, if we target these types of videos that people are watching right now, we can kind of cover off, let's say, 20,000 videos that are out there about a topic. And we can say, right, we're getting most views from these videos, and we can kind of see the titles of those videos and what the content would be. But then we're getting most number of conversions, or most people buying from these types of videos. And it's really interesting because while something could be really popular, it might not mean that they can actually buy from that content. Whereas if someone's watching different types of content, you're like, right, everyone's buying there. Okay. So we normally start with one ad that we can say, right, that's our best guess to begin with, not necessarily that creative typically. Run it, and then from the numbers or from the videos we can see where we're getting really good results, we'll say, great, we can see that most people are buying when they're watching this type of content. Yes. And then we can start to like focus in on that because the cost of generating the traffic from one traffic source to the next might be kind of looking really good from the data if we're just looking at how many views we're getting, but will look a lot better at sometimes when you're like, actually, how much is it costing us to advertise and what's the return on investment and things.
Well, something you said I think is really important to highlight, which is that sometimes the things that you're making, they're not like super high production value, but they're successful. The most important thing, the thing that we're all looking for, like evolutionary wise, we have, evolved to highly value connection and belonging. It's really, really important to us. And if you feel like somebody knows you, then you feel like you belong, you feel like you're safe, you're in your pack, blah, 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 blah. So connection's really important because of that. And so even if you have an insight into this person that you're talking to, it can be as simple as a piece to cam going, hey, are you looking for a buggy? And you'll be like, I am looking for a buggy. How did you know that? Or, I do wish I could get my coffee going from bed in the morning. Yeah. So that's where this data, and so us creatives can think that we're, the bee's knees and we're the most important, it's the ideas. But if you can connect with somebody and you know what they believe and what's important to them and what they're looking for at that moment, it doesn't have to be a super high, like an Oscar-winning performance.
Yeah,
kind of
talking honestly to the
ad.
user.
Yeah,
and
it
being
doesn't
helpful.
have to win an award-winning ad. If you're really looking for success, then it's connection. If you connect that person intimately, then, which is why I think it's important to imagine this person that you're talking to. Demographics are demographics, age, gender, location. Psychographics, which I think is a real old kind of concept, and Ogilvy invented this concept of psychographics. So we look at, like, what do they believe? Who are they? Where? So I ask myself, where do they shop? Why do they shop there? And so, like, when we were doing this juicy thing for Volvic, we were asking ourselves, what does this person who goes to the 7-Eleven and they have a wall of drinks they can choose from. You have water, you have juice, you have sugar juice. It's not really juice, but it's just disguised as juice. You have things that are overtly bad for you, like soda. What would make them choose this? And it's the person who says, I am healthy, but I also enjoy, the finer things in life. I will spend more on this, or I am not so boring that I would drink water, but I'm also healthy, so I won't drink soda. So, these are the things, if you get the insight into what people are thinking and what they believe, which is something I learned. I love Seth Godin, marketer, the god of marketing for me. I love everything he writes, I've listened to every podcast. And his book, All Marketers Are Liars, was incredible because it challenged and invites us to ask ourselves, what are the lies, and they're not all lies, but what are the things that people tell themselves? I am kind, I am smart, I am healthy, I am worth it. So L'Oreal, you hit the nail on the head with, because I'm worth it. And that resonates and that connects with what that woman believes. The woman who they're targeting does believe she's worth it. Yeah. And so it's like, we know what you believe, we hear you, we're connecting with you. So they're talking to 1 million people and one person all at once. So like in this process of going through these insights for this juice, and I've said this before, and this is almost an embarrassing thing to admit, but I drink Smart Water.
Smart Water?
Yeah.
Which is?
The most expensive bottled water that you can get. When you go, there's a bank, of bottled waters. There's a store brand.
So it's a brand of water.
Right? So Smart Water is a brand of water.
Is it in the UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like Madonna washes her hair with Smart Water or whatever.
Oh, right, okay.
The point is,
it's good enough for her then.
It's packaged differently. The branding is very simplified to make you feel fresh and clean and healthy in your choice. And it's a load of BS, but it's the most expensive water. And I buy it because I didn't realize this until I started going through the process of identifying who would buy this flavored water. I realized I buy smart water because I feel wealthy, I feel superior, I feel smug when I spend twice the amount of money that I need to on something that's free anyway. And that is why I buy smart water, because it makes me feel smug and important and rich.
Yeah.
And then I drink half the bottle and throw the rest of it in the back of my car.
Because you can.
Right, because I can, because I'm rich, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, if we're brave enough to actually admit these things and go, and why would this person buy this product, and how can we tap into those lies that they tell? I'm not rich, but that's a lie I tell myself. I feel wealthy when I spend double on water.
Yeah.
So if we can tap into these human insights, then we can come up with all sorts of ideas.
I've always found it really interesting. So I was talking to my wife because she's very much into Instagram, and for her to take the Instagram photo takes ages. Like a number of times I have
Are you an Insta husband?
I'm pretty much,
have you seen that video of the Instagram husband?
I haven't seen the video, but I can imagine what it'd be like. But I honestly feel
a human tripod.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Pretty much. Oh, so I think I'm more the. I am kind of taking a lot of photos in order to get the perfect shot, sort of thing. So it's like, oh, this is just so casual. This is like after 140 photos, it's like we got one, right? We got one that we can put up.
The lighting's really great right now, by the way. We should take an Instagram photo while we're doing this. Let me get my phone.
Well, yeah. But the what I find is like I look at a lot of Instagram photos and it's like, oh, this is just another day in the life of me, sort of thing. And it's like everything's been placed perfectly, and everything's like, and it's like people buying the smart water, and it's like, oh, was that in there? It's just this classic thing of like, basically they want to show everybody what their normal life is like, but it's not like that. But they show like that. Hence why everyone takes good photos on holiday and so on and so forth. You never see someone like, oh, I've had a really crap day and a really bad lit photo and just nothing looking good, unless it's for another reason. But it's so funny because I always like joke with Kirsten. It's like, wouldn't a great Instagram account be to just like take a photo of other people setting up their Instagram photos? So it's just the embarrassing moment, sort of thing.
Yeah. But I mean, I think even there are some people who are like, they're like the anti, so they take like really real photos. And I'm like, actually, you're just trying to paint the picture that you're so real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's exactly the same thing.
It's all just,
the fact that they want to be on Instagram and express their opinions to other people is like that kind of like, it's interesting. Very cool. So as you go through this process, is there anything that like you think, okay, here's another technique or here's another process that's been really useful for you as you go through this?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So there's two things. One is it's important for us to look at the assumptions that we have about that product or service that we're advertising or that we're tasked with advertising. And so we ask ourselves, what are we assuming about this product? Mm-hmm. What are we assuming it's good for? What are we assuming people think about it? Challenge the assumptions that we might have about those products, and kind of identify. Sometimes we assume things and we don't realize they're assumptions. We just think, oh, yeah, it's a given.
Right.
Of course, that's a given. So that's important.
Can you give me an example of like?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to say that.
I know that's the worst thing ever.
Do I have an example of challenging?
So just take me through the process of that. So like, say for example, smart water, for example. The assumption would be that it's healthy, or it's healthier maybe, or something.
Let's see.
I know I'm really putting you on the spot here as well.
It's good. So an assumption could be, so this insight that I got about myself and why I buy smart water, if we were tasked with, so that came at the tail end of this whole process of coming up with ideas for this juice. Mm-hmm. So what we knew was, or what you could assume is that people will drink a flavored water because they think it's healthier. That's a natural assumption.
Healthier than soda.
Yeah.
Soda.
Even, you call it sodia.
Sodia. It's a new thing.
Sodia.
It's a new thing on the market, yeah. It's like soda, but it's just sodia.
Sodia. That's great. So so it would be natural and plausible to say, okay, so people would buy this because they think it's healthier than soda. Perhaps challenging that assumption and going, well, we're assuming that's why they buy it. What are some of the other reasons that they might buy it? So anytime you think something's a given when you're coming up with ideas, park what you're doing and go, okay, hang on, let's dive deeper into that thing. And you end up in a huge rabbit hole. But and then you challenge that assumption, and then you might go back to what you were doing, or you might follow that line of inquiry, and end up realizing that actually perhaps people go for something because it's perceived to be healthier. And when you look at the ingredients, it wasn't healthier. It had as much sugar in it as a Coke. But I think it did. I don't know. Maybe I'm defaming the product now. I'm so sorry. It had a lot of sugar in it. But maybe if you challenge that assumption, you would come to the realization that people buy it because it makes them feel smug and important and healthy. There are these sports drinks that, like Gatorade and stuff, and they're just so unhealthy.
And they're good for sport. They're good for sport
because they're
for some
called
reason.
Sports drinks, and it's just sugar drinks. But I don't know, it's full of electrolytes or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what do we assume about the product? But what do we also assume about the people and their reason for buying it? And you can ask yourself. So we assume that naturally, I would assume that we're advertising this product to the target demographic or whoever is listed on the brief. But what if we were advertising this product to nuns? What if we were advertising this product to children? What if we were advertising this product to people whose lifestyle wouldn't allow them to partake in this product? If you were advertising a meat product, how would you advertise it if you were trying to get vegans to eat it or whatever?
So is this different to the assumption idea? Is this like
I guess it's an offshoot. If you're challenging assumptions, then you can start going into all sorts of realms of going, well,
how do you sell it to a nun?
How would you sell it to a nun? I don't know. You can come up with so many ideas. And then another thing that I think we need to start doing. I think we need to start doing more of is a lot of our clients want us to pack as much information into one video as possible. This kind of line of inquiry and all this ideation, these are like typical and classic ways of coming up with ideas for advertising. I'm always in the advertising mindset. However, most of what we do is video for internal use. We do a lot of corporate video, but I like to come at every single challenge with an advertising mindset. So, quite often we're just doing something like a monthly update with the CEO of a company, and we go there and we get them to do an update every month. But we will still sometimes go through a process of, what are some different ways we can do it.
Right.
We would assume that we'd be sitting in the boardroom doing it. What if we challenged that assumption and went out somewhere else? Where could that be? You can take these and apply it to whatever creative work you're doing. So a lot of what we do is not classic advertising as such. We are doing things like corporate video. And so our clients want to pack as much information into one video as possible because they think it's, budget friendly and stuff like that. However, it turns off a lot of the audience because the messaging is like for everybody. We will recommend turning things into series or making things shorter. Something that's been brought to my attention recently, because I'm about to go do a pitch this week, and the ideas were birthed out of a love for this campaign that Amazon has done 100 10-second ads for their Echo.
Right.
And it's micro moments in people's lives using Alexa.
Got it.
And they're 10 seconds long. So all you see is a little girl going, "Look, mommy, aren't these pretty?" And she's like scratching, and you just hear the voice going, "Alexa, Wikipedia, poison oak or poison ivy or whatever." And the little girl's just like, and that's it, 10 seconds. There's another, my favorite one is the guy's looking in the mirror and he's looking at a new tattoo and he goes, "Alexa, how do you spell eternal?" And she starts, and he's like, Nearest tattoo removal.
That's great.
And then there's another one where it's just a top down on someone's gift wrapping, and they put a Band-Aid on, and they go, Alexa, order tape. And so these are teeny tiny little stories, like segments of stories, like micro honing in on how will the users be using this product. Yeah. And sometimes it's a hard pitch, I think, to get that streamlined and go, you know what, there's a great functionality. Alexa / Amazon / Echo does a million different things. But what if we made 100 ads about all those little tiny things that it's capable of doing? Mm. And then someone like you would take those and plant them strategically as little bumper ads or whatever on YouTube to make it relevant to the person who's watching it, which then goes into this connection thing and makes people go, wow, I feel known, or I feel like that's spooky, like that you have advertised to me so precisely. Yeah. Because they spread their budget out amongst 100 different little tiny ads instead of one big $1 million thing.
It's funny that you should say, like, there's a lot of people that try and cram too much into video, because it's exactly what all our clients tend to want to do. They're like, oh, but we got this and we got this and we got this. It's like, okay.
It's not an infomercial.
No,
you're just meant to get people to go, oh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So the approach that we normally take is like, if you've got 4 really cool, amazing things to talk about, break it into 4 different videos, and then we'll kind of like turn it into some sort of story online. So it's like they see the first ad, we'll make sure that they don't see that again, but they'll see the second ad, and so we know we can have that kind of like sequencing happening, and it just makes it much easier. But I know that like there's so many examples of like there's a Southwest Airlines in the States who do it, and they're just like everything is about becoming the low-cost airline, and that's their one core message, nothing else apart from that sort of thing. So it's easy for the consumer to get it.
If you're saving money on flights, what else could you spend it on? How does that actually affect people? There's so many little tiny stories in that.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Because we're the low-cost airline, that's like, yay, yes, like patting ourselves on the back. But if we go, and this is how it affects you,
in the ad itself, yeah.
Yeah, right. So what if there was a series of little ads about, what you would do with the money that you save?
Exactly, yeah. Well, the thing that I thought was great about that brand and having that message is it's like that's the one thing they do, and so it's like they I mean, EasyJet did it in the UK. I think thought very intelligently, where they did it where they put this message out there. They might say, we might even start charging for you to use the toilet, so we can reduce the airline fare, sort of thing. And so it causes like massive like viral sensation of like, you're charging £1 to use the toilet on the aeroplanes.
That's so awesome.
But it's just like, well, now you know who we are.
So reverse engineering that, the technique to come up with that is to, and this is it's not even a technique, it's just a tenet, is to say, what are the negative things about this product? And let's just go right in there. So right now, McDonald's is doing a whole huge ad campaign that's actually voicing the horrible things people say about the chicken nuggets are full of beaks and they're not really made out of chicken. And they're just, and as a vegan, I'm like, I hate this, but it's so brilliant. It's a great campaign because they're going, we know this is the word on the street about us, and we're just gonna hit on it right now. Let's just get this out of the way. And so so EasyJet are going, we charge you for everything, and we're gonna use that, as a joke on ourselves, laugh at ourselves, So I love that.
It's clever, isn't it?
That's so cool.
So, anything else? What else do you do? What else happens in these meetings? Kind of creative?
We go off on. It's harder. Some members of our team are they want to be effective and they want to get stuff done. Sometimes it's important to just let the conversation trail away from this thing that you're meant to be doing. And I find that easier when it's just two of us, because there's no one else putting pressure on going, let's get back to the subject, let's get back to the topic. Recently, Charlotte and I were sitting and we were in Starbucks, which is another thing. We get out of our normal environment. Although Starbucks is becoming our normal environment. So I don't know about going to the office now. Maybe it might be a luxurious thing. So we were at Starbucks and we were sitting and trying to come up with ideas for this thing. And it was for an education portal for one of our corporate clients. They're reworking how they do learning and development within the company. And it's a global company, so whenever we come up with things for global companies, we have to be thinking about diversity. And does this idea translate all over the world? Is this a human insight in general, or is this just a cultural thing that we're picking up on? Which adds a little intricacy of a little complexity. So we're sitting and coming up with ideas, and we were meant to be telling the story of things that are harder than they need to be, because traditionally this learning portal has been more complicated than it needed to be, and now it's being streamlined. So we said, how can we, and we were tasked with making a bunch of 15-second ads that had nothing to do with learning and development, that just would pique people's interest and kind of abrupt the flow of what they see on the internal intranet.
Well, they used to,
yeah, like they get into the office and they scroll and they're in like office mindset. What could we make that would make them feel like they were in Facebook for a second, watching some sort of little viral ad or whatever? So like it has no branding at the front of the things that we ended up making, have no branding on them, because we didn't want them to feel like it was a corporate ad. We just wanted them to be like make them sit up and take notes and get excited about this thing that's coming soon. Yeah. So we were going, what things are harder than they need to be? And we were coming up with all the typical stuff. And then I started going through my handbag. I grabbed my handbag and we started talking about other stuff. We got off the subject and we were just talking, and I was trying to find something in my bag, like a pen or a lipstick or whatever. And I don't remember who did it, because that's what happens when you're working collectively, but we came up with the idea of getting people to sit and complete a task using the contents of someone else's handbag. Mm-hmm. And so this person had to like pay for this coffee, or this person had to, charge this drill. And, there was like a man drawer and like handbags, and it turned into this little thing. And that idea of something so simple, find enough change to cover the price of this coffee, made so complicated by the utility of a bag that had loads of different pockets, it was just more complicated than it needed to be. Yeah. That idea just came out of getting off the subject. So sometimes in these meetings, we get off the subject, and that's an important part, because someone will start talking about a YouTube video that they watched, or any number of things can happen when the most important thing is to get the brief in your head, to know what you're meant to be saying, know what you're meant to be doing, what are you advertising, or what response from the viewer are you trying to elicit? Mm-hmm. Is that the right word? Get. And trust yourself that you can use techniques, you can use methods, you can use ways of doing it, but in the end, if you trust your own sensibilities, then the ideas can come from out of thin air.
When you get to the end of that process and you think, right, we've got the idea, mm-hmm. do you then use that as a like, you kind of like have your one core idea and then go with that and then start creating ideas off that, or do you think, right, okay, well now we've got our kind of few ideas, we're going to go and create ads based on that information?
So sometimes we come to a point where we have and by we, I mean, I judge that we have something I can work with.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And we will, I will go away and build on that, or I'll write a script. Mm-hmm. That's a possibility of a possible script along the lines of that idea.
Do you storyboard it out at the same time? Do you kind of say?
No, so first we will get approval for the concept. Mm-hmm. And go, this is what we're thinking. Here's and then there's a whole process of pitching. We make sure that we're on the same page. We go over the brief. So this is who we're talking to. This is what we're meant to be doing. So, we started thinking about blah, 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 blah. And then, that led us to this idea. And, sometimes they'll say, this doesn't have to be the final idea, but here's an example of something that could come from this concept. So picture that, you have a woman walking in a grocery store, or, whatever. I will flesh it out, but the concept needs to be signed off. Mm-hmm. And once the concept is signed off, then we will, and by this point we are engaged. We are working for them. We have a deposit or we have a purchase order or something. We have a promise of payment so that we can start the process of pre-production. And then storyboarding happens. Once that's signed off, then we're able to, if there's voiceover, we're able to start casting, you know, all the different little stages. And then that's where now my producer hat is on. And, you know, I get my production team getting me, you know, possible talent. And, you know, we have to look for locations sometimes and voiceover artists. And sometimes it's an animation, sometimes it's live action. Sometimes I pull in an outside director or a completely different production team that are more experienced in that field or are able to produce something with that look and feel that we want. You know, that's where production starts.
And is that through your
storyboarding is not really part of the ideas process, really.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, but in terms of turning that idea into the finished product, that will go through typically like a script, then storyboard, and then getting like the kind of like assets you need, like people that would be actors maybe, or getting the animation team on board at that point.
Yeah, the whole team's engaged at that point. So when we have a script that's signed off, then my director is making shot lists and lists of kit that are needed, and we're scheduling dates, and it's this whole fine like process of juggling, you know, setting dates, but then getting talent who are available on those dates, and you know, you kind of go through the, you know, are we hiring a studio, and then you start negotiating, you know, you've got agents, or you know, if you have children, you have to get permits to get them out of school, and there's a lot that goes into it, and that warrants sometimes the very high cost of producing things like this. I think a lot of people don't anticipate how much it takes to achieve stuff like this. Sometimes we just film with our friends. We did one recently. One of the best things I think we've made in a really long time was my husband and a friend in the parking lot. And we just did it like run and gun style in the parking lot of a store I will not name because we wouldn't have a permit to do it. And we just parked as far away as we could so that the branding would be nice and blurry in the background. And we filmed it in like 10 minutes. And it went down a treat, and it went, because the idea was strong enough, it could be filmed really like guerrilla style.
Just to get a concept on tape almost, and like say, here's kind of what we're thinking.
No, that was the final piece.
Oh, that was the final piece?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
We just did it on the fly. I mean, we could have probably filmed it with iPhones if we wanted to. Yeah. And it landed really well because it was exactly the exact right. So again, it was for this learning portal, and one of the other USPs, so there were 3 main USPs that we were meant to be advertising, and one of them was personification. This portal gets to know you. It gets to know your career path, your career track, your goals. So when you log in, it will say, "Welcome back, Tom. Here are the classes that you should take next. You know, you finished this class. Now do this one on, you know, retail or management or whatever." And so we asked ourselves in the ideation process, we were asking ourselves, okay, personalization. What are some of the things that we associate with personalization? What things are really personal to us? Naturally, the first thing we thought about was fingerprints, because no 2 people have the same fingerprints, allegedly. And but because it was the tech sector, one of our guys was like, yes, but in tech, fingerprints are security. So if we do, like, we came up with this idea for like this really complicated animation. It was like fingerprints and like grew into this tree of knowledge. But we realized that they were programmed to think of fingerprints as a function of safety and not of personalization. So then I remembered that Dale Carnegie says in How to Win Friends and Influence People that what's his quote is like, the sweetest sound for a person, the sweetest sound in any language is their own name. Something like that. So I said, okay, well, what about names? What happens when people get our names wrong? What happens when, and so we came up with 3 concepts. One of them was this one in the parking lot. You know, one guy sees his friend and goes, "Oh, hey, Ben," and the guy turns around and just goes, "Oh, hey, you." Right, and then that's it. It's like, then it's like,
that is a moment
that's
in
it.
time. Yeah,
that's
okay,
the
cool.
whole ad. because then it comes in with the branding and the proposition, which is, we always know, personalization is whatever, key to the new learning and development platform. Then the other one, this is where you can draw from real life sometimes. I went I wrote this one as a therapeutic. This was therapeutic for me. Because my name is Elizabeth, there's like 50 things you could call me. So we have a woman coming into a boardroom and she's like, so sorry I'm late. And hi, I'm Elizabeth. And everyone goes around the table and goes, oh, hey, Betty. Hi, Liza. Hey, Lisa. And she's just like, ah. Oh. And so then she opens her computer and the platform for the learning development thing is there. And it says, hey, hey, Elizabeth, and she feels known, and she's like, oh, and it's personal. Yeah. Okay. And so that's my life. People call me, I will literally go, hi, I'm Elizabeth, and they'll go, hey, Liz, and I'm like, I didn't call myself that. And then everybody in their realm, or everybody at that company, will now call me Liz.
Right, okay.
So that was a little insight into what it's like to own a name. What is it like when you own a name, and what happens when it goes wrong? So that's what all of these little videos were about. And then the other one was a woman walks into the coffee shop and the barista goes, name, and she says, Jenny, and he's like, Jamie. And this is the thing that happens when you go to Starbucks, they don't know your name, and it's so simple. The other day, so one of my nicknames is Betty. The guy was like, what's your name? And I said, Betty, and they went, Birdie? And I was like, yeah, my name's Birdie. Like, my name is the most important thing to me. Like, stop getting it wrong. It's so important. Because that's, it's personalization. So this was a little ad campaign that we made with just the human insights of what it's like to own a name. So cool. It doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be like really high concept. But if the idea is strong enough, you can film these really lo-fi, and it can land really well and be really successful.
Talking about that, if you were to be a small business owner or a startup and you haven't necessarily got the funds to hire an agency and go that route or something, and you're thinking, okay, I need to make a splash, I need to get people to find out about us, and I want to go through some of this process. And maybe they haven't got the team around them to be able to kind of throw ideas out there and things. What would your advice be in terms of trying to find a creative angle or an idea that they could use for a promotion they might be doing?
Okay. So number one, you can just do these things for yourself. You can ask yourself these questions. You've learned a lot in this, little, how long have we been talking, an hour? 5 hours. You've learned a lot now. So you can run off and start asking yourselves, these questions and do it. I would venture to say you could probably hire someone like me to just come up with ideas. And if you have a couple of cameras or, some kids who are interested in film production, you buy the idea off of a creative and run off and make it yourself. If the idea is strong enough, it's not really the production of it. It's not always the most important thing. I think you just have to engage your brain and start thinking different.
Using these methods or
try it. Try these things or I think as soon as we realize that certain things are habits or assumptions or that we are in certain ruts or that we come up with one idea and run with it, like the lateral thinking thing, that could just be a huge light bulb for somebody. And read Edward de Bono, Lateral Thinking. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's a book called Ideation, written by Nick, N-I-K, Mahon, or Mann, M-A-H-O-N. And it's just a book of techniques and exactly how to use them for coming up with ideas. It's where I get a lot of this stuff. There's a book called Creative Advertising. You can learn. You can learn this stuff. Yeah. Certain things are, we're born with certain tendencies to be creative, but we are creative beings. We create all the time. So even if you are like yourself and you're science-based and you are data, savvy and you're into insights and logistics and things like that, you are still creative and you can still come up with creative ideas if you start practicing this, form of mindful idea creation. And it can be really structured and when you start doing it, but then after a while, it becomes the way that you think. And you start seeing and hearing like a play on words, and you start going, where did that come from? You come up with stuff. Or you watch something play out. You watch an interaction between a couple on the street, and you think, actually, that would be an amazing ad for fill in the blank. And I use Evernote, and in my Evernote, I have notes upon notes of like photos of ads I see in the train, or lists of things, human insights that I have, stories that I've, jokes. Jokes are another great way to, so a lot of jokes can be altered.
Yep.
And the punchlines can be altered to advertise a product.
Right, okay.
So,
I saw the one where it was ship my pants. Have you seen that? There's in the States, which is like, I can't remember who it's for. It's one of the big companies, but they were like, there's like, yeah, we'll ship your pants, which is like, they'll send it out to you, obviously.
Okay.
But just like the P and the T was like very closely like the way it was said each time. So it sounded like I shit my pants as opposed to ship my pants, that sort of thing. Yeah. So like they kept on saying it, like these kids saying, yeah, I'll ship my pants.
Yeah. So like that is as simple as toying with the way that you would say, I mean, like, how simple is that? To just sit there and toy with the different ways of saying something, or experiencing the product. When we were doing, the juicy thing, we had our fridge full of the juicy stuff. If I were advertising, a coffee maker, I would make sure I had one of those, and I'd be going, how do I use this? What do I feel like when I use it? Because those, being playful is an important attribute for creatives to have, is to play. Because that's where ideas can come from.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been so insightful, and I know that we're going to be working very soon on a lot of projects here with us.
Yep, yay.
And so I can't wait to get your brain working on that stuff as well.
To fuse the creativity with your knowledge and data.
The science meets the art and comes together. It's going to be amazing. So thank you so much, and I love trying to put some sort of process together for this creative stuff, and it's great to kind of pick your brain around that stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to getting you down here again and talking it through even further, and we talk about some of the stuff that we do together as well in due course. So thank you very much.
Cool. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so if you enjoyed the video and you want to receive more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe. You'll see the button on the video right now.